Have you also spent years studying other successful founders? Reading their books, listening to podcasts, following their advice, and it kind of worked, but also not. And so this is what happened to me. So I built a profitable seven-figure business following all the right advice, but I ended up in a golden cage. It was just profitable enough that it made sense to continue, but also draining enough that I couldn't see myself doing it for a few more years. In this video, I'm going to show you why copying the proven systems actually keeps us stuck, what the successful founders are actually doing that we are missing, and how we can figure out what actually works for each of us individually. So let's dive in. So here's what happened to me. I built a successful education company, got it to seven figures. It was highly profitable. I did everything right, followed the advice, built a team, created the systems. And about 2 years in, I also started to hate my days. I was doing the work that I was actually pretty good at, but it was draining me. And every day felt harder. But also couldn't figure out why, because I was doing what all the books said to do. Focus on one thing, build it, scale it, manage a team, follow this funnel. And yeah, here's the thing that I realized in the end. That advice works, just not for me over a long period of time. And this is the trap that most of us fall into. So we look at Alex Hormozy, we look at Tim Ferriss, or whoever it is that you're learning from. And we somehow try to copy their playbook. But their business works because it fits them, their specific skills, their energy, the way they're wired. For example, Hormozy's business requires somebody who loves systematizing, who can grind on repetition, who's motivated by building the biggest thing. And if that's not you, his advice will not work for you over a long period of time. Same with Tim Ferriss, like his whole 4-hour workweek thing. Well, yeah, that works if you're an introvert who loves deep research and systematic testing. But if you're an extrovert who needs people around, that lifestyle will make you miserable. So I learned this lesson the hard way. I built a business that required management, team leadership, daily operations, daily meetings. And frankly, I am good at those things. I can do them. But they also drain me. And I can't sustain it longer than a few months without wanting to quit. Because frankly, that's not my zone of genius. And this is what I call the copying trap. So successful founders aren't successful because they follow this universal business advice. By the way, there's no such thing as universal business advice. They're successful because they build their business around their specific wiring and values and skills. So now let's talk about what that wiring actually is. So your zone of genius. So let me first explain what I mean by zone of genius. There are actually 4 zones where you can spend your time. At the bottom, we have our zone of incompetence, tasks that we're just bad at, and we all know to avoid them. Then there's your zone of competence, things you can do. Actually, you're okay at them, but nothing special. And here's where it gets interesting. Above that is your zone of excellence. This is where most successful business founders get trapped. Your zone of excellence is work you're really good at, maybe even exceptional. People praise you for it, it makes you money, and from the outside, it may look like the reason you're successful. At the same time, this very thing drains you. So you can do it, you're great at it, but it doesn't energize you. And then there's your zone of genius. And this is completely different. It's the work, the kind of work where time disappears, where, you would do it even if no one paid you. And it's the kind of work where people constantly ask you for your help because you make it look effortless. But here's the trap that catches most of us. We don't get stuck doing work we're bad at. That's obvious, right? We don't do that. We get stuck doing work we're excellent at because it pays well, because people need it, because we've built our entire business around it. For me, my zone of excellence, it's systems and operations. I'm really good at building systems, running operations, and gluing together bits and pieces into a full picture. And yeah, the business did grow because of this skill. But it was also killing me inside. And my zone of genius is completely different. It's actually learning something new very quickly, like condensing vast amounts of information in a very short amount of time and breaking it down into simple frameworks or like product or product visions. And I'm good at also teaching this information forward. That's why everyone who took our educational programs always loved our content. They said things like, oh, it's so clear. I wish someone has explained this to me way earlier. Yeah, unfortunately, I had spent the majority of my time in my latest business in my zone of excellence, not my zone of genius. So I was successful, but I was also unfulfilled. And here's why this matters so much. So the real secret to business success isn't working harder or following a better system. It is compounding. So it's doing something long enough that you become a master at it, that you build momentum, that the results basically multiply. And the problem is that you can't compound if you can't stick with something for long enough time, 10, 20, 30 years. And you can't stick with something for 10 or 20 years if you don't genuinely love it. That's the red thread in this video. So, what is the type of work that gives you energy and you're great at? Well, that's your zone of genius. And that's the only work worth building a business around, because that's the only work you'll stick with long enough to actually master. Now you know why the zone of genius matters. But how do you actually figure out what business model or what business fits your genius? So let me show you a framework that I created for myself to help me out, and I call it the founder venture fit. So every entrepreneur falls somewhere on a spectrum between a maker and a manager. Makers create new things, and managers optimize existing things. But there's a second dimension that matters just as much. Do you, as a person, do you need variety or do you need depth? Variety means you need to work on different things, new products, new audiences, new markets. And depth means you stay focused. Same audience, same market, just going deeper on solving their problems. And this basically gives us 4 types of entrepreneurs. And once you know which one you are, you can just much easier find the right business model for you. So let's start with maker plus variety. So these are people who love creating new things and need constant novelty. So like Tim Ferriss is the perfect example. He writes books on completely different topics: productivity, investing, cooking. His podcasts cover every domain imaginable: athletes, investors, scientists, parenting. And yeah, he's an angel investor in dozens of companies. And he never stays in one lane. It's because his genius is learning something new, mastering it quickly, teaching it, and then moving on. And his business model reflects that. Books, podcasts, investing, each in a different domain. You can also see a similar pattern with Peter Levels. He has built over 40 different products: job boards, nomad tools, AI photos. Or you can see the same pattern with Elon Musk, if you think about it. EVs, rockets, tunnels, brain chips. There's just so wildly different businesses, right? So yeah, if you're a maker who needs variety, your business needs to let you launch constantly. So it's almost like becoming a serial creator. Yeah, that's your model. Now let's move to maker who needs depth. So these are the people who love creating, but they go deep into one domain. So a good example of that are DHH and Jason Fried from Basecamp. So they have been making productivity software for knowledge workers for over 20 years. They built Basecamp, Hey, Once, and they all share the same philosophy and same audience even. So they, DHH and Jason, they are still makers. They're just shipping new products, and then they're also writing and teaching about that. So they love going deeper on similar problems. And I think this is an interesting pattern for those of you who are makers, but like depth. And if you're this kind of person, then you should find your one thing and then keep making within it. So become the absolute master of that domain. Okay, next is manager who needs depth. So this would be focusing on one business and scaling it forever. And yeah, Jeff Bezos is a good example of that, with Amazon. It's one core vision, it's e-commerce infrastructure. Even AWS fits that vision. It's infrastructure for commerce. And he's not launching totally new domains. He's going deeper on operational excellence in one space. And he's managing it at massive scale, building systems, optimizing everything. Yeah, now some people will argue that Bezos is a maker because he started in a garage. But just look at how he spent his last 20 years. He didn't spend his time designing products. He spent his time designing the system that delivers these products. So if you are a manager who needs depth, you want to build one thing and scale it to perfection. That is a traditional CEO path, and it's very, very powerful if that's how you're wired. Finally, manager plus variety. So these are like portfolio operators. Cody Sanchez is a great example of that. So she buys so-called boring businesses, she calls them that, and she buys them across completely different industries: laundromats, car washing companies, newsletters. And the key component here is that she's not creating the product or services. She's buying the businesses and optimizing them. And yeah, she's hiring operators to run them, to build systems, but she's managing the portfolio. So yeah, she does need variety, but she gets it through operations, not through creation. So if you're a manager who needs variety, you want to have maybe multiple businesses, but you either need to be hiring makers to build them, or probably a better strategy is to just be buying businesses from makers who want to exit. So here's how you can actually use this. First, figure where you are in this spectrum. Are you a maker or are you a manager? Do you need variety or do you need depth? And really be honest with yourself. Don't just land on something that sounds impressive. Just really try to understand what is actually true for you. Second, find someone in your quadrant who's built a successful business and study their model, not to copy it exactly, but to see the template. Because you can't copy Tim Ferriss if you're a manager who needs depth. It just won't work. And you can't copy Bezos if you're a maker who needs variety. You'll burn out. But if you're a maker who needs variety, like Tim Ferriss, his model does give you a lot of blueprint. Books, content, serial projects, minimal operations, and you can build your own version of that. The key is just knowing yourself first, then finding the right template. Not just following whoever makes the best content online or has the biggest audience. Yeah, try to make a habit of following the people who are wired like you, because their business model will actually work for someone with your brain and values. So, quick recap. Stop copying whoever has the best content, figure out where you are on the maker and manager spectrum, and then find someone in your quadrant and use their model as an inspiration. Make it yours, and that's how you build a business you won't grow to hate. Now, if you identify as a maker, check out this video here, where I go deeper into 3 fundamental business model options that we have to build a business that works for us.